All right, welcome back from the breakout sessions. Want to thank you again for your participation and your interest. One of the things that I've seen today that is, I think is indicative of your interest in being able to move your area, region, or state forward is, as I've walked around outside in the lobby during a couple of these sessions going from room to room, is everybody was here paying attention. There was not a lot of networking going on in the hall during the sessions, and I think most of us have been to conferences where a lot of work's being done when the speakers are talking in here, and that's not been the case. So I certainly want to thank you all for your time and attention. This is our last session that we want to wrap up, and we'll also do a little bit of a wrap up and then call on our federal co-chair, Earl Gold, to make some closing comments. But what I'd like to do right now is to introduce to you Ann Barth, who is the Executive Director of Tech Connect from Tech Connect West Virginia in South Charleston, West Virginia. Following her will be Mary Hunt, Senior Program Officer with the Claude Worthington Benedum Foundation, and then Kent Spellman, the Executive Director of the West Virginia Community Development Hub in Fairmont. Each of them are going to talk to you a little bit, and then please listen carefully, think of some questions. We may turn this into a bit of a town hall style final panel as well. So with that, I'm going to call on Ann.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Thank you. Love it, baby. Abraham Lincoln was the only U.S. president to hold a U.S. patent. And he said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Okay, I'm going to tell you what the patent was for, because I know you're dying to know. He invented an invention to lift boats over shoals and obstructions in a river. But really, back to his quote. That is what we're doing here with the power grants. We're starting to create for the future of West Virginia and the region. And it's not easy. We're talking about traditions and values and a way of life. West Virginia native Brad Smith is the CEO of a global tech giant called Intuit. They make Quicken, all those accounting tech tools. And he came in April to headline a policy forum for Tech Connect West Virginia. It was focused on strategies to grow the innovation economy in the Mountain State, and he urged state leaders to lean in to what we don't know. And he said, when I look at the state with fresh eyes, I see nothing but opportunity. But for us to get there, we're going to have to embrace change. We're going to have to lean in to the unknown. And that advice and direction to lean into the unknown comes at a critical time as we look for ways to grow our economy in the face of tremendous change. We can and should preserve our core values as a state and as a region while aggressively pursuing new opportunities. What do you really need to be successful? Well, we've heard about it today. Projects that build a competitive workforce, enhancing access to and use of broadband services, fostering entrepreneurial activities, and developing industry clusters, projects that create jobs and businesses. We've got to show collaboration. We've got to be regional and large scale. We've got to have an economic restructuring focus, demonstrate leverage, and have partnerships, and we need to be in this together. But even before all of those things, we need to have a vision. We really have to believe that West Virginia and the region can be as strong or stronger tomorrow. I like to say we have to look out the windshield and not in the rearview mirror. We can't dwell on what's lost or gone or coming back, but in a different way. We have to really concentrate on what can be gained. And to that extent, I think it's really key in these power grant applications and in this process that we identify our assets and not get hung up on what we don't have. And I've heard it said before, and it's true and worth reminding people today, that these grants are not an opportunity to try to build an organization. These grants are meant to effect really transformational change and help the communities in West Virginia and the Appalachian region that have been so severely impacted by the downturn in the coal industry. We've talked today about investment priorities and desired outcomes, and what might that look like as an example? Well, I can tell you that at Tech Connect, we're in the middle now of a really exciting EDA grant called Scale Up West Virginia. And we're partnering with centers of excellence around the state to deliver services to entrepreneurs and small businesses and innovators. They're out there, they're making prototypes, they're offering shared state-of-the-art equipment to our businesses and entrepreneurs. They're assisting with industry certifications, providing a big wide range of technical assistance, connecting people to an investor network, and more. Jobs are being created, and there's follow-on financing. They always love that, follow-on financing. We're operating that project in 40 counties, and my point in telling this is that those centers of excellence that we are partnering with are all located here in West Virginia. There are resources like them and more resources, extensive resources in our universities, in a growing entrepreneurial network, lots of dynamic local leadership. I think of Upshur County and the Hive and Beckley as just two examples of that. And we've got a lot of philanthropic partners in the state, like the Benedum Foundation, who are helping make this happen. And not to mention, we've got a ton of natural beauty and resources like rivers and water. So Brad Smith, who I mentioned earlier, the native of Canova, he said, you know, we really are capable of becoming the next version of who we want to be in this state without losing what makes us special in the process. So I want to just say to all of you all, as we lean into the unknown, and it is a little bit scary, it's hard work. Grant writing is just so much fun, wouldn't you agree? I think it's like an escape room, like real life example of an escape room. You know what this is? People pay money to do this. They go get locked in a room and they have to uncover clues and find their way out before the buzzer goes or something. Well, it's a little bit like that. We're all in here, we're going to learn from it, and we're going to come out on the other side and be stronger and be successful in the end in really affecting transformational change in the coal fields. And I'm excited to be a part of it, and I look forward to working with many of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions later if you have for me. Thanks so much.
Hi, everybody. So let's stretch. No, I mean literally. We need to stretch our projects. That's my message today. I wasn't doing the afternoon, are you bored and tired thing. But we've been working since before the announcement of the power funding to try to look at what projects exist out in the state. And as the Benedum Foundation, we have a view of some of the projects in the areas of which that we fund that gave us a pretty good starting point of what are the potential universe of projects that could be developed if there were resources. And if there's one thing that is coming across my message, and also as we've been continuing to talk to groups in the communities, at counties and regions and all that, is that we need to think about how to stretch, how to reach broader and deeper for a scaled project that meets some of the needs that are transformational. So I guess I want to try to impress that upon you as you think about your project. You may be thinking in your county, or you may be thinking in your region, and you had a concept of a project that may have one element to it. Let's think about how we can stretch that concept into either, if it's a site-based project, more sites. If it's a trail-based recreational project, you know, how do you triple the businesses or triple the visitorship or whatever that project's goals are, stretching that is something that helps us reach up to this level of scaled project that really can turn the dial on these. A couple of just ideas that have come across our minds. We've been working as a team to try to reach out into the communities that are developing projects, along with all the ARC folks and the state folks. There's a real team approach, I think, to help the communities and all of you in your pursuits to these power grants. And a few messages that have come across of what we have as our strengths. So in developing your project, go with your strengths. So in West Virginia, some of our strengths are in agriculture. We have strengths in technology. We have strengths in tourism of all types, outdoor recreation, cultural heritage. We have place-based tourism. We have all types of tourism, outdoor, as I say, outdoor rec. We have wood products and forestry and opportunities that have been undertapped in those, from agroforestry and maple syrup and the products that are in high demand. Those are all products that we can develop and can be transformational relative to industries that we have as strengths right now. We also have to go with our needs. So when we think about where is there commerce within our communities and how does that create, how our needs that are addressed creating commerce, we look at healthcare and healthcare delivery and some of the services that are absolutely needed. They are also the ones that create jobs and create a commerce either through the healthcare system or through some other type of programming. So if we look at healthcare delivery and things like home health and telehealth and options like that, that is where we have needs, which are part of an opportunity to build the industry and transform the economy. Energy efficiency, you know, we've been talking a lot about energy efficiency as sort of the sleeping giant, similar to food. You know, in West Virginia, you've heard Commissioner Helmick, you've heard a lot of people, if in any venue, talk about that West Virginia's own food market is $6 billion. We are addressing almost, not quite $1 billion, and most of that is exported. So I'm looking over at Cindy Martell with the Department of Ag. Our under-tapped own market for food has got to be developed and has got to be a power position, no pun intended, from where we go with power grants in order to build agriculture as a vibrant, family-supporting, income-based industry. And then I think things like housing. I know folks that have been in the housing workforce with me. When we look at housing, we look at the needs, housing in itself as an industry driver, but the housing that's needed relative to people aging in place and special needs, foster care housing and special needs types housing, that is an industry driver. Housing is an industry that we can build around a strength, and people work in that industry with the skills that they have had in the coal mines. And then we need to go with our assets, back to land. This whole $30 million for the abandoned mine lands presents an opportunity about what do we do with some of the 220,000 acres that exist in West Virginia of abandoned mine lands that can be useful in some possible way, and putting our heads to work in developing back to tourism and trails and other agricultural applications, things of that nature. So strengths, needs, and then social enterprises. We've had some success. We have, those of you that have ever met Brandon Dennison with the Coalfield Development Group, he has a family of social enterprises where he is building workforce development opportunities around what he has at hand. One is deconstructing dilapidated structures, puts people to work doing that, puts people to work in using that, those materials in rehabbing multifamily housing for housing authorities. He is also building high tunnels and doing agriculture in the coal fields, and he's working now with solar power in rooftop solar installations. Those are social enterprises that he has designed and is putting people to work. That is a power application currently being considered at this point in DC. That is the type of project that, as you are developing what your strategies are, take a page from Brandon's book on developing a social enterprise and showing where we can do good work and employ people while we're experiencing this transition. And then again, the last thing is we have to solve problems. That's another industry opportunity. So we've just walked out of the broadband group, and those of us that have been working on broadband for a long time know that we have not cracked the code on broadband. It is still a problem in West Virginia, and this power funding, some portion of it, can be to help create some of those solutions and overcome and figure that out. Again, I mentioned healthcare. You know, things like, if Tom McConnell's still in the room with the Small Farm Center, this whole idea of the grocery stores that are closing and developing opportunities for jobs and businesses around rural and small town grocery stores as an industry. That needs to be developed. It can be a power project. It makes employment. It sells West Virginia's locally produced food. And again, the aging population needing the assistance and services and equipment and things is an industry. So those are the areas that, as we've been working, you know, when we think about what do we do for a power project, there's 50 right here, you know, that if we put ourselves into and develop the right scale and the right location and the right customer and the right assistance, we have the meat and the makings and the feedstock for a lot of really good transformational power projects. You know, I mentioned the word team. Like never before, many of us have worked around the federal government, either in direct partnership or in collaboration before with the feds. And never in my history, and I think many people that are around, have I ever experienced so much collaboration as around this power opportunity. I've seen people just really, speaking of the word stretching their work. They're not police standing at the door saying who can go in and who can't go in. They are really helping to engage folks in what is eligible, what are the possibilities, how do we overcome this. So please take advantage of that with your federal when people say call us and check it out, please do that. And all the people that you see, I think, as you're developing, you have the hard work to develop these proposals. Those folks that are here are wanting to help make this successful. And then just a couple of last thoughts about getting help. One thing that we've noticed in some of the workshops that we've done leading up to this one is that some of you who especially are in small nonprofits do not know how to get the help for grant writing help. We don't know who the consultants are that you might be able to call, and so you're trying to write these very complicated applications yourself. Some of you might be getting frozen around some of the requirements. So I would just want to ask, those of you who are consultants, grant writing type people, could you wave your hand up and there's people in this room, take a look around. They may not be people you know right now. You see, and I have cards from 2 that left. You know, that's what those technical assistance funds are for, to engage people that do this for a living, that know how to walk through the protocol of a federal application. So if you need help, get help. That is something that can help get you over the hurdle even while you're developing the concept of your project. You will get a better program out of it, I think. And that's back to why the fast track funds are available to help you. You know, I just want to ground us all in what I heard Russell say. And this is something I think we have all been thinking about in some way, shape, or form. But he said you get 26 weeks to decide what you want to do with your lives if you're a coal miner that is laid off. You know, 26 weeks. I've got stuff in my refrigerator that old. It is not that long. You know, yeah, and true, it should be pitched, but 26 weeks is a frighteningly short period of time. And I don't want to get too dramatic, but it's dramatic. This is riveting. And it's up to us to really rise to the occasion for those coal miners and the people that are working in that supply chain. These are people. These are our relatives. These are people that are our sister and brother citizens and their children. So we've got to raise the bar. We've got to shoot for the moon in this and really make this happen. And, you know, we were talking about, you know, Keith wants $50 million. Let's get 50. Let's go for that. I mean, we don't have anything limiting us to go after the greatest amount that we can go after. If we get turned down, that's fine. But let's not participate because of competition. 3,000 coal miners are receiving unemployment now. That does not include the ones that their unemployment has expired. 3,000 people. That's, Shinston. That's the whole town of Shinston. That's the whole town. These are just people sitting every day at their dining room table wondering how they're going to make a living. And they still want to live in this great state, and they don't want to pack up and move. And some of them are fearful to move because their assets that they own are here in this state. This is a critical time. So again, I want to be the cheerleader for you all so that you can represent the needs of those people, and because they are us, and that's who we want to make this work for. Because they're working for us, we're working for them. It is a team. So I want to close with that and hope that it inspires us to think bigger, stretch your projects, think bold, and go after these projects. Thank you.
So it's great being the third speaker on a three-person panel among three people who have been working together for an extended period of time. And I have this whole page of points, and I've crossed most of them out because you guys have covered them pretty well. So thank you for sticking through the entire day, and I'm glad to see this many of you here at the end of the day. That's a good sign. What the others that left didn't know is that ARC is taking note of who is left at the end of the day, and you automatically get extra points on your proposal for sticking through the entire day. So, this is, I think, basically the fifth meeting plus a whole bunch of conference calls of bringing partners together in various ways to talk about how to take advantage of this power opportunity in the best possible way. And as you have heard many times, we're talking about $100 million over the next basically 21, 22 months. That's a lot of money, but actually, that's not very much money. For the way I look at the power opportunity, it's not about the money at all. It's about these meetings that we're having. It's about the collaboration that we're building. It's about the partnerships that are developing. It's about changing the culture of economic development in West Virginia and Appalachia. That's the power of power, not the $100 million. $100 million is not going to revive these coal-impacted communities, but it does have the capacity to really motivate all of us to learn how to work together more effectively in order to change the way we look at economic development and the way we implement economic development. To accomplish this revitalization of these communities is not a $100 million project. It's a tens of billions of dollar project. But if we think we're going to attract the tens of billions of dollars that we need to revitalize our coal-impacted communities in Appalachia, we sure as hell better spend this $100 million effectively. Because Earl is going to have to go before Congress and explain exactly what that $100 million achieved. And if he can't show that it achieves something that is really powerful, that is really starting to change the economic world in Appalachia, then we're not going to get more money. So it's incumbent upon us to figure out how to do this. This isn't about your particular project, frankly. It's about how we collectively can build a system of support for those communities. And it has to be a systems approach. And it has to be done collaboratively. So you have a project. You think you got a good project. I'd encourage you, as everybody has all through the day, to look around, reach out, keep talking to people to find out who else you can bring into your project. We have a lot of folks here, some of whom have just very small projects or smaller ideas about what they could do with this power funding. They may not have the capacity to raise the match or implement a project by themselves. But if they can become a part of somebody else's project, or if they can become a part of a multiple entity project that addresses that issue that they're interested in, then we start to scale up to projects that can be funded by ARC and EDA. I want to talk a little bit about what we see as the future economically for these coal-impacted communities. One of the reasons the impact is so great is because coal has created a monoculture, an economic development monoculture. If we approach this by thinking that we're going to replace one monoculture with another monoculture, we are not doing these communities a service. You've heard it said many times that the answer to this problem is not a silver bullet, but thousands of silver BBs. And that's what we are all representing, is all these little BBs of economic development opportunity. We believe that the future for these communities is going to be based on small business and local ownership. Why is that important? One is small business truly is diverse economic opportunity. And the second is that local ownership brings so much more to communities. The revenues generated by locally owned businesses recirculate that revenue more than 4 times as much as revenue generated by entities owned outside of the community, outside of the state. Those locally owned entities give more than 4 times as much in charity to the community as those businesses owned by outside entities. We have to change a culture that not only looks at economic development differently, but looks at our buying habits differently. I think that this is one of those great tragedies that can really, 30 or 40 years from now, be seen as a great opportunity for Central Appalachia. It'll be seen as a time when things really started to turn around in our communities. But we're going to have to think differently. You've heard that again and again. I keep reiterating that because it's so critical. If we want to change our economic development outcomes, we're going to have to change the way we do economic development. That might mean that we have to reinvent our economic development support system at the state level and at the local level. It may be time to take a serious look at how effective that is and whether that is the model we want to maintain. So we're charging you with a lot of really tough work today, okay? This kind of transformation doesn't come easy. But I think the great thing about this is that we have left so many federal dollars on the table over the years for very good reasons. Reasons such as our nonprofits and our communities are too small to provide the match. Our nonprofits and our local communities are too small to put together the capacity necessary to implement a project effectively. There's a lot of excuses we have. But one of the main reasons we haven't done it is because we're in competition mode instead of collaboration mode. This money is great enough so that our struggle is going to be, how can we get together effectively enough to raise the match and build the projects that can really use that money? This is an opportunity to see that we are not competing. We have to be collaborative in order to have successful projects come out of power. So, I hope that when that $100 million is spent, we'll have learned from that about how to do this better than we have done it in the past. That's the real takeaway. And it's not easy to figure out how to do that. And I don't have the answers, and Mary doesn't have the answers, Ann doesn't have the answers, and Earl doesn't have the answers. None of us have those. You have to find them yourselves with your own partnerships in your own communities. So that's the call to action that I would leave you with. That's the call to action. If you walk out of here and say, well, I'm going to put together a little proposal for ARC and see what happens, then you're not taking away the right things from this meeting. But if you come out of there and out of this today and you say, I am going to go back into my community, into my region, I'm going to reach out to my regional planning and development councils, to my local economic development people, to the other economic development entities in the area, to the nonprofits who are trying to serve my community, and I'm going to talk to them about how we can really create a system that will change our communities and our economy here. Then you came out of this with what I believe is the most important message. It's not about $100 million. Okay, I'm going to quit there. Thank you.
I appreciate their comments, and I wrote a couple of things down, but I would like to see initially, I've got a couple of questions for the panel, but I want to see anybody in the audience, do you have any questions for the folks from their presentations? And I appreciated your quote about look out the window, or the windshield, and not the rear view mirror. It's very easy to look out the rear view mirror and oh woe about all that has gone on. But yet, we're looking down the road, you look at the picture on the screen up there, and we're looking out the windshield of what is before us and that great opportunity. In your shop, what can we learn from some of the tech or other entrepreneurs? I mean, you work with entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs. You see them being innovative. You see them collaborating. What are some of the things that you've seen through the entrepreneur lens that we might be able to apply into a power project and communicate that into an application? It's not, there's a little button right on the top there. No little light should come on there.
Sure.
Good, you're on.
So someone developing a technology has to really kind of be in it, usually for the long game. It doesn't happen overnight. They have to come up with the idea, test the idea, get it validated or verified by a third party, go through various iterations, and all of that before they begin to maybe build a management team around an idea for a new company or a new product. And I think that's kind of partly what we're about here too. We're kind of in this for the long game. We need some short-term yardage, so to speak. We need some wins right away and some solutions right away, but we also need some longer wins on out there. And I think when tech entrepreneurs start something, they keep an open mind because they know that they came up with their idea in an innovative way, and they are usually, if not already, can be encouraged to be open to some new ways of thinking. Their idea for something might turn out it got used differently as a product, but they try to keep open, and I think we have to keep an open mind about how things may work differently. Mary may want to add to this. She's been in this world for a while too.
You know, I don't really want to add to that. I just want to go off on a completely different tangent. So one of the things that I see as we work with communities is that, especially these coal-impacted communities in the southern part of our state, they haven't just lost jobs, they've dramatically lost population. And their towns are full of empty homes and empty storefronts. And we all know that the way economic development works in today's world is that businesses locate where they want to live. And if we are going to try to revitalize these communities, we sure as hell better be thinking about how we're going to build a better looking community, a healthier and more engaged community. We're going to have to look at recruitment strategies to build the population of those communities back up. And frankly, I think that the way that we have to start doing that is not just by putting together economic development proposals, but by changing the way we talk about West Virginia among ourselves and with others. We have to change the narrative. One of the things the Hub is starting, Jake Lynch, our communications guy, is putting together an initiative called New Story, changing the narrative about West Virginia. And he's pulling together a bunch of communications people from all over the state and region in Morgantown on June 9th. And this is going to be a systemic approach towards changing the way we think of ourselves, talk about ourselves, and convey what West Virginia is to the rest of the world. We have to believe in ourselves before we can sell ourselves. And our ability to believe in ourselves sometimes is lacking. We have to be much more optimistic. We are too quick to talk about why we don't have this and how we don't have that, and how this is never going to amount to any real economic growth or change. Even the littlest things, a small farm-based business, a small arts and crafts business, starts to build us in a positive direction. And we have to celebrate those. We have to share the story of those. We have to figure out how can we get more people to hear this story. So keep in mind that these communication pieces, the new story piece of what we're doing is as important as the economic development piece. And please pay attention, get engaged if you're able.
And I'll piggyback on that. There is a Facebook page started, ARC Power Collaborators, I believe, and if you're on Facebook, join that group if you would, and add to it. And I think adding stories about your projects are going to be giving us a good way of talking about the the energy that is around these programs and projects that you're developing. And I think just like Kent says, we have a lot of people to educate that there's a lot more going on positively than we're just not going to be kept down. And I think we do need to keep the positive message going. We thrive on more positive messages. I think each of us, all of us, do together. And so that's another good tool. The other point that I would mention about the question you asked Ann is, this whole entrepreneurial piece. Everything we're doing here is entrepreneurial. This is sort of uncharted territory. It's all discovery space. We have some experience, but we're talking about taking that to a different level. So I think this issue of risk and a respect for risk is something that we have to take and sort of embrace a little bit. We don't know where we're going. That's with the windshield. We might have a GPS, but we have to program where we want to go, and it takes us where we want to go. But I think we have to raise our tolerance for risk a little bit, not wasteful risk, but risk that allows us to just stretch ourselves and seek that next possibility that maybe we've held ourselves back from sometimes.
Well, I appreciate the three of you following up on that. One of the things that came to mind as you were talking for me is work with entrepreneurs, and especially early stage entrepreneurs. They really have to be coachable. And for us in our power projects, and as we're developing projects for power, listening to what others say, listening to where maybe entrepreneurs love to get together and talk about failure. They're not necessarily interested in how did you succeed. They want to know how did you fail and how did you overcome that. And what we need to look at into our power projects we need to be coachable with our idea, need to be open to collaboration with our idea, and we need to think about how can we build on previous projects that may not have worked. And so I really appreciate your comments in that. Ken, in your work across varied communities in West Virginia, tell us a little bit about a project or a community that has just really impressed you with the way they pulled together a collaborative partnership.
Oh boy, put me on the spot. There's quite a few of them, and there's some that we have a folder full of projects that are underway in terms of development that have multiple partners involved. I think the most innovative are the ones that realize that this systems approach is critical. So to talk about one small project, not so small project perhaps, is the one that Jeff Lusk is doing with the Hatfield-McCoy Trail, based on years of experience with the fact that we don't have enough tourism amenities to serve the riders that come and use the Hatfield-McCoy Trail. And he has a very clear goal of increasing usership on the Hatfield-McCoy Trail system from, I think, 37 to 55,000 in this coming year. That's an ambitious goal, and he's doing it by developing a support system for small business people who want to build amenities along that. And that requires a number of pieces. It requires local economic development support. It requires access to capital. It requires expanded business coaching. And it requires a variety of technical assistance providers who can help those businesses succeed. So that's an example of something where he's thinking in a systems way in order to make sure that there is going to be some measurable outcomes in terms of business development and job creation at the end of the day. Anything you want to highlight?
I think about Williamson, and I was just on a conference call yesterday about the work that is developing around the health center and looking at there's a dynamic leader and a lot of good budding leaders around Dr. Dino Beckett, and he's looked at a culture of health as a community economic driver. And so it's everything from the gym that's been developed and all the assets that you can develop especially in the downtown area, then the amenities that support that. It's basically looking for sort of that budding focus for that community, and in his case, health. It's driven the development of the farmers market, of a community garden that is led by veterans. It's also created all kinds of activity and health activities, and so you have a much more thriving economy and local economy as a result of that health care driven leadership and organization. That's one example. And then I think about Princeton. You know, and Princeton sees itself, if Lori McKinney's around here, has been, and the team from Community Connections, you know, Princeton had all the assets that many other small towns have had, you know, buildings downtown, a theater, sidewalks, all those same assets, but, you know, through the vision of some handful of folks that were able to be more viral in sharing that vision and engaging people, has really reinvented around an arts and culture economy, I would say, and everything from food to arts to events to activities, and has become a much more thriving economy as a result of that. And that's something I think Princeton has also taken its show on the road to share their lessons with other communities. So those are other good examples, I think.
Mary, don't push that, oh, well, go ahead, Ann. I was going to say, don't push that microphone too far because your question's next, but no, you go. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, is Rachel still here from Fayette County? This was, just real quickly, this is not large scale, but if you found a way to partner or do this on a bigger scale. So they have a youth leadership program in Fayette County that takes candidates from the high schools and puts them through a wonderful county program. And the way that they finance this is they have every spring a 4-day birding festival. And people come from all around the country to count and track and learn about migrating birds. And I just think that's the most creative example of a community using assets that it has there with naturalists at the park and combining that with a way to bring tourists in, but also fund a local program for youth.
So the example, especially in Williamston, was they wanted a culture of health. And so it wasn't, we want a farmer's market, and so we want to do that. It was, we want a healthier community. And what is the strategy that we need to develop to get there? And so part of that strategy was a place for local foods, the farmer's market, or the gym. And those weren't just, we need a gym, let's build the gym. It became all a part of the strategy to make the area a healthy community. And those are the types of things that we're trying to look at in Power. So along with that, Mary, in some of maybe the projects that your foundation has funded, what have been that may even be unrelated to something that we would consider for Power, but what was it in maybe one of those applications that you just saw a lot of collaboration or the partnerships or something that just really intrigued you in that application, that maybe that type of project's not applicable to Power, but what they did to get there is? The partnership they pulled together, or the collaboration that they did, just something that impressed you with that.
I think I have a great one. Okay, so we've been working a lot with local food and local farmers and some of the more traditional, traditional farming and agriculture folks, extension and others. And during the development of this and the growth of the local food movement in West Virginia, it was clear that in order to be a really driving economic industry, it had to be a modern industry too. So there's a lot of discussion around what's going on in technology and agriculture. And, you know, over here we have world-class Robert C. Byrd Institutes all over the state. And so the idea was Robert C. Byrd Institute for Advanced Manufacturing looks at processes, looks at times, looks at assets, looks at all the elements that make up the same thing as an agriculture industry and farming, but it's always been looked at in a manufacturing context. Well, we were able to marry up those two. In fact, it came together through the Rural Jobs Accelerator. There were two sort of similar or collaborative type of opportunities, and they said, you know, you're the chocolate and you're the peanut butter, and let's make a Reese cup, you know. And I think when they came together, this whole idea of adopting drones and how do you use your handhelds to do things like production planning or manage your high tunnel wind and all kinds of new technological applications. I mean, you know, devices and tools and transportation strategies for developing food hubs, all that came from pulling those types of assets together, you know, and they weren't, it's not unusual when you see them working together, but it was at the time when that partnership was developed. Was that a good one? A good example?
I think that was great.
That was a good example. I love that project.
Any follow-up? Ann or Kent, do you want to follow up on anything with that?
Nope. Ann?
I would just point out that agriculture technology is considered one of the rural disruptors, along with things like UAVs, Internet of Things, wearable technology, things like that.
Excellent. Let us give them a round of applause. I think this has been great. Oh, a question? Raise your hand up if, or did you, oh, you wanted to say something? No. Okay, the question was about the Fayette County project that was mentioned. Was that viable for power?
Just that kind of general model that, you know, you host a tourism-related event, but the proceeds go to support an educational program in the county schools. I don't know. I think.
So, Leadership Fayette County is a great model working with youth. It's got some great outcomes. I was over there yesterday, I think it was, and ran into a whole bunch of those kids that graduated from that program. And it was just by coincidence at a restaurant with one of the leaders of that program, and it was just a great experience having a conversation with them. So there's some success there. How does power fit into this? I don't know, but maybe when we have a success, why aren't we looking at ways to find the resources to replicate that success in county after county across West Virginia? So that may be a way to use some power funding to develop a plan for replication or even implementation of that.
Yeah, that's a great idea because like Calhoun County could do astronomy, you know, they're a dark sky community, and they could build an event around, you know, drawing in astronomy tourists that then the funds support some local leadership effort. Kent's going to work on it and report back to me.
Yeah.
Sounds like a possible TA grant, right?
One thing I wanted to add, you know, you guys are hearing us, all, not just us, but everybody here today yell at you about collaboration. And I want to make it clear that we're not asking you to collaborate when others are not. We have seen unprecedented levels of collaboration, as you saw earlier today, among the federal agencies. You are seeing unprecedented collaboration among the private sector funders and the foundations who, through the Appalachian Funders Network and a bunch of other national funders, have developed the Just Transition Fund to help support transitions of this kind. So the funders, the agencies, are working just as hard as you are at that collaboration, and frankly, we need all of those collaborations to be working. So.
Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. And I'm gonna
We get two.
My partner, you guys are the best.
So we've had, this is our fourth session, and you've just watched, you've been able to witness really the best, most effective, most informative session, panel that we've had in all four sessions. These three have just done an incredible job of explaining the priorities and just outlining a pathway forward. I just want to thank the three of you, not only for today, but for all the work you've done over the last several years in conjunction with ARC. You know, I just need to do a couple thank yous here. I want to thank all the federal agencies who came and participated and have contributed. It's not necessarily an easy task to be able to do that, but we really appreciate their dedication and their travel and their work in this area. There's also a woman sitting out here in a red dress, Shantae. You should thank her on the way out. She is the most organized, driven individual that we have at ARC, and it's yeah. She has kept us all in line. It's pretty amazing. It is really amazing. Thank you very much, Shantae. So, these guys have just said it all. It really isn't about the $100 million. The $100 million is a way to get you guys to think outside the box. It's a way of getting folks throughout the region to collaborate. It's a way to get people to be serious about the need for economic diversification. And the $100 million will help. But it's really your drive, your imagination, your dedication, your love of your community, your willingness to collaborate and work with other folks, and to work that extra mile and to go that extra mile to make sure that it's done and it's done right is what we will do, is how we will succeed. The $100 million will help, but it's really your work and your efforts. So I want to thank you for coming today, for participating, and we're looking forward to your investment so that we can make an investment in you as well. Thanks so much.
Just as you get ready to leave, we have one last question. There's a website out there. Does anybody know the address? Thank you. Travel safely home.